There was a situation recently involving the actress Jennifer Lawrence, which to me really sums up a lot of the inherent problems in Western third wave feminism. Jennifer Lawrence was promoting her new film Red Sparrow. It's an espionage film um, in London. Yeah, it was London. I can see the London Eye in the background. With her male co-stars, Jeremy Irons and I don't immediately recognise the other guys, but that's irrelevant. Four male co-stars, right? Now, in the UK right now, we're dealing with Arctic blast. It is quite cold weather. It's always slightly warmer in London than the north, but still pretty chilly. Um, so her male co-stars all have like warm jackets on, and this is the catch. She came out with a plunging black Versace dress, low cut Versace dress. Now, feminists immediately took online. One example of this is the magazine Jezebel, and they automatically assumed that this was somehow symbolic of the inherent gender equality in Hollywood. And um, here we go. This is some of the responses. Many critics presumed that Lawrence had not chosen the outfit herself, implying that it represented persistent gender inequality in Hollywood. Jezebel, for example, began its post by calling out her stylists. If you're looking at a woman and she is appropriately protected from the ravages of wind and rain, you will forget how hot she is? Question mark. Yes, thank you, J. Law's stylist, for respecting this truth. Um, Clear sarcasm going on there. Lawrence targeted this notion in her Facebook post, emphasizing her own sense of agency. That Versace dress was fabulous. You think I'm going to cover that gorgeous dress up with a coat and scarf, she wrote. I was outside for 5 minutes. I would have stood in the snow for that dress because I love fashion and that was my choice. And the article continues. This is from, just in case anyone's wondering, the Washington Post. Joel Edgerton, one of the pictured co-stars, also chimed in on the issue with an interview with Yahoo Movies UK. Yesterday on the balcony seemed like a lose-lose situation because if Jennifer wore jeans and a coat, I'm sure nobody else would have criticised her. Excuse me, I'm sure somebody else would have criticised her, he said. At some point it seemed like the weather was blamed because it was the optics, plus the weather, plus the four of us in our outfits. Obviously the four men. It seemed like everywhere Jennifer goes, she is part of some international incident. Okay, so this is my take. From a practical point of view, you could argue that it's a little bit chancy because it's cold weather. Um, Even young people can get colds, but she's not a little girl. She's an adult woman, and if she said it was only 5 minutes, looking at the photo, it wasn't raining and it wasn't snowing, it was just cold. I could sort of understand it being a bit reckless if there was a full on blizzard going on, but it was just cold air, that's all. Um, and it was 5 minutes. Now, what I find interesting is the automatic assumption of those feminists that she had no choice in the matter. They didn't even bother asking her opinion. But then, this is the catch. When they did find out that when she made it public that she decided herself from a fashion point of view, then they still criticise her. And the criticism from feminists, and I've been in online debates about this, so I know what the criticism is that she's selling out to the patriarchy. As if men have put a gun to her head and said, "Oh, you need to wear us to satisfy us. Wear this to satisfy us." I mean, this is how absurd and controlling feminism has become. Jennifer Lawrence, in one of her posts, said, "This is not feminism, Leon." Now, I don't know if Jennifer Lawrence identifies herself as a feminist. I wouldn't be surprised if she does, because most women in Hollywood do. And from what I gather, she's been involved in the same sort of campaigns as other prominent actresses. Um, but this shows some very interesting things. I think it shows a fundamental controlling aspect of feminism. I mean, you can relate this back a few weeks ago to the whole debate around glamorous young women at sporting events, like the Formula One grid girls. and that then extended into the girls at dart matches and boxing round card girls. I'm pleased to say the world of boxing hasn't taken that attitude. They haven't pandered to feminist demands. Um, the fighter Chris Eubank Jr. said that they're paid for what they do, and they're a big part of boxing culture, which is true. Um, I mean, it's interesting that feminists don't seem to care about the fact these women will actually be losing their income, because if they cancel these sort of things, that's exactly what would happen. But that's just one issue of many. The issue for me is that there is an interesting paradox in all of this. Feminists, when questioned by men especially, will say, "Oh, we are standing up for women to to determine themselves, to be strong, independent women," right? And yet, that whole line about strong, independent women seems to only apply when feminists are telling them how they should be strong, independent women. I think you can see this in many facets, actually, not just. I mean, this, to be honest, is just a microcosm of a greater problem. I actually think there's a Puritanism within feminism that, ironically, is not that different from some religious hardliners, albeit for different reasons. Religious hardliners believe that women should cover up for morality reasons, and if I use the hijab as an example, one of the main arguments for the hijab is a modesty doctrine. Very often you'll hear people defending the hijab saying, "Oh, it's to show my modesty." Now, I happen to believe in a woman's right to wear it if she wants, but I do think there is a premise behind it, which is a modesty doctrine. And I do think there's double standards insofar as these nonsense events like Solidarity for a Day, wear a hijab, they're nonsense events because they don't take into account those women who don't have a choice in countries like Iran. In fact, those very brave women who defy that, those sort of religious conventions. But anyway, I'm making a comparison between puritanical feminism and religious control because it might sound absurd on the surface, because the whole point of feminism is women's equality, and a lot of religions, you could argue, are inherently patriarchal. But in terms of the controlling aspect, really is there much difference? Feminists may not commit bloody carnage, they may not blow themselves up, but in terms of the actual control aspect, there is not that much difference between Islamists saying, "Oh, women are immoral if they don't cover up," and feminists saying women are bending over to the patriarchy if they don't cover up. I think Jennifer Lawrence has a right to be angry, and if I was her, I'd tell them to mind their own damn business. That's what I can't stand about feminists. They argue that it's all about women's equality and empowerment, yet they're the first people to disrespect women's choices. In fact, when the whole sports debate was going on around women involved in that, there was a boxing round girl on Good Morning, the breakfast show, who said that the abuse that she had received in the recent weeks around that debate had been that absolutely all of that was more than what she had, anything that she had seen in her 8 years as a boxing round girl. She had been called a prostitute by feminists. She'd been called an idiot. She'd been called all sorts of names. So feminists are not actually very good at respecting other women. You'll hear feminists say, "Oh, women need to stick together," but very often they're the very first people to castigate other women if they feel those women are not getting on board. And it's almost cult-like. It's almost cult-like. There's many examples of this. The whole "this is what a feminist looks like" T-shirt. Any public, any woman in public life who didn't wear that, you know, uh, it's just sort of bullying people to endorse a movement. There's a recent example of it. Kate Middleton, the Duchess of Cambridge, went to, I believe it was the BAFTAs. It may have been the Brit Awards, can't remember. But anyway, all the actresses, it was the BAFTAs, yeah, all the actresses there were wearing black in support of the Me Too campaign, and the Duchess of Cambridge was in green. Now, maybe she should have been more in touch, I don't know, but fundamentally it comes down to control. It comes down to telling somebody what to wear. It doesn't matter who that person is. Nobody should be told what to wear in a situation that isn't. It's one thing if you're, let's say, working for a big company like an airline or something like that. Okay, having a universal dress code is understandable because it's a sense of uniformity and professionalism. But other than that, there really is no reason for anyone to be told what to wear, um, except in certain obvious situations of respect. I mean, you're not going to go to a funeral in a bikini, or a guy's not going to go, wearing, uh, let's say, some really disrespectful t-shirt or something. So yeah, there's certain times where a degree of respect is needed. But as a general rule, live and let live. People should mind their own damn business in terms of what others wear, uh, for the most part. I'm not saying it's always the case. I can see problems with the burqa and niqab, but that's really for another video because it's too much. It would just get into a whole other realm, and I don't want to go there in this video. But yeah, I do think there's an obvious parallel between religious Puritanism and feminist Puritanism. Now, the interesting thing is, if a woman, it's almost like feminists on feminists uh, attacks now, because very often the women they attack do call themselves feminists. Um, and I just think it comes to a point of control. And I questioned a feminist I was debating with about this, and she basically admitted it. Yeah, she said, "Oh, we will call out those women who pander to the patriarchy." So she wasn't even denying it. Um, and it's treating adult women like little girls who have no agency over their own decisions. And that's what is so obnoxious about the likes of Jezebel. I mean, they're not just in the business of shaming men all the time, they will shame other women as well. And I think it's pathetic. Um, I mean, let's say, what's the worst case scenario of Jennifer Lawrence wearing that dress? She might get a cold, and then she can blame herself because she chose to wear the dress. But as she said, she felt it was glamorous. She chose to wear it. Um, how does that hurt anybody else? You see, I sometimes think feminists would like all women to wear sacks, but only if they say so. If religious people said so, then they'd be saying, "Oh, you're trying to control women." Well, what are you trying to do? I really see no difference, and that mentality needs to be challenged. Feminists think that they're above criticism. Um, they think that they're protected from it. I really think anyone who supports Jennifer Lawrence should be telling them to mind their own business. I mean, I don't follow her career that closely. I don't know that much about her politics or anything like that. Um, but in terms of this incident, it's a good example of feminist control, and I'm sure there can be many more examples found, but that happens to be in the news at the moment. So yeah, feminists, mind your own damn business. If you really are about women deciding for themselves, then respect the fact that she, as an adult woman, has chosen to wear the dress for the reasons that she stated. I could understand the controversy if she was made to wear it, but that is not the case. And the fact that they automatically assume that is the case means you have to really scrutinise some of the claims that are being made. Well, this shows that gender inequality in Hollywood. Well, if they're using that as a basis, then maybe every time they come out with that, it needs to be examined a little bit more. What's your basis for that? In this case, the basis for it was a misconception.